Hello everyone, Forest Focus as a new Nottingham Forest manager is in place and soon to be confirmed around 12 hours after Nuno was sacked. Ange Postecoglou is the man, although he doesn't seem to be the man for many fans. So are we reading it wrong? Will the former Tottenham manager succeed? Will he win a trophy in his second season? And will it be the Champions League or the Championship playoffs? Joining me to discuss all that and more, first of all, is Mark Sutherns. Mark, afternoon, how are you?
I'm all right. I'm just trying to sort it all in my head. It's a lot to take in, a lot to unpack, and we'll see how the next few days unfolds. But yeah, never a dull moment, is there? At Forest?
No, not well. I'm on 4 hours sleep, so no, there's definitely never a dull moment. James Belshaw, how are you doing?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, good to have you with us. Good to have Sky Sports commentator Seb Hutchinson here as well. Seb, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me on. Is there a reason why, or something else? What have I missed?
I was going to take today off because I said this on the stream yesterday. What more can we say about Nuno, and unless something happens? And then obviously it did happen. So here we are, second stream in 12 hours. Mark, kick us off from the fan point of view. Then, just how are you feeling? I guess about Nuno, and then obviously Ange, who I'm sure is going to be announced later today.
Yeah, it's hard to separate the feelings of the two, isn't it? Because obviously one's blending straight into the other. So I guess on Nuno, first of all, I think I did my grieving, my mourning, if that was to be the right words, a week ago. I think we spoke on here about it feeling almost inevitable that he was going to go. I must admit, it got to Monday, and I thought, oh, he'll probably be all right. He'll probably be in charge at Arsenal now. So I kind of got moving into this week. I thought it would be done by now if it was going to happen. And obviously they were waiting until 12 minutes past midnight or whatever it was when it was announced last night or early morning. On Nuno, yeah, I think I said it before. I said, I think obviously enough had gone on behind the scenes that we don't have all the details about, that, in my opinion anyway, was affecting his ability or his performance as a manager and his decisions that he was making. I think it was affecting him, not surprisingly. And I think what we saw in West Ham was the result of that. I think the players didn't look. I didn't look in the same frame of mind that they did against Brentford. I think the opponent was. You can compare Brentford and West Ham in terms of, I think, quality on the pitch and where they are in the season. West Ham were there to be taken for 3 points, in my opinion, and we seemed to be just out of sorts and without a clear plan to how we were going to break them down in that first half. And then Nuno didn't react in the second. So I think we said it at the time. I think I looked at that performance, thought something was wrong there. And obviously we speculated at the time that it was the off-field stuff going on that we weren't privy to that was perhaps getting through to the manager and therefore to the players. Gibbs White's performance, is it a coincidence that Gibbs White led the cheerleading at Palace and then had probably his worst game in a Forest shirt against West Ham in that match? So you can speculate about joining the dots and all these things, but I think looking back, I think it's fair to say that West Ham performance, something got through to the players. It was getting to Nuno, and I think it meant that, as I said at the time, it was untenable, and I think it was obvious that inevitably he would go. And then on the Ange appointment, this is a manager that I've gone through all the spectrum with, really. When he joined Tottenham and when he had such a positive impact and when he was getting such great results and he was playing the football he was playing, I remember thinking, well, this guy's a breath of fresh air for Spurs, and I was envying them having him in charge and playing the football he was playing and getting the results he was getting. Not because Forest weren't doing as well, but just I was looking at Spurs and thinking, oh, good for them. They've got attacking football, they're getting results. They've got a manager who really feels to be invested in the players and be a top man manager. And then obviously as things degraded at Spurs and results didn't go his way, I went the other way and thought that Ange was someone who was, quite bitter and quite, the way he handled the media I didn't like. And I think he showed a lack of respect to the media at that time. Maybe you could say even go as far as say a lack of class, the way he addressed some of the media when the results weren't going his way. And Steve Cooper used to say, when adversity strikes, the real character comes out. So that made me from afar look at Ange and think, when things aren't going well, is this how he reacts? So I've gone through the spectrum of emotion with Ange from the outside. Now I've got to get used to him being our manager. And so I'm going to choose to think positively. I'm going to choose to think that it is a move that can work out for Forest, and it's a move that obviously Marinakis feels that will take us to the next level. So at the moment, I'm going to roll back to my opinion of Ange that I had some time ago and go, he's going to be a positive force for Forest and look forward.
Seb, you did the West Ham game, so you would
sorry
have
about
seen. Yeah, well, you certainly broke a good run of results, didn't you, with us? Did you think at the time, oh, lots of red flags here? Are you surprised by the news of Nuno going and Ange probably coming in?
Is it possible to be surprised and not surprised? Because I was surprised at the time. I thought during the game, that overriding thing to me was all about Graham Potter. He was the manager on the chopping block in my head as the game was going on. I didn't really think the result would have a bearing on Nuno either way. I still believe, even if Forest had won that game, this decision would have been made. I just think it, from an optics point of view, it makes it slightly easier for Marinakis. Not that he would care, but to come off a result like that, it makes it, to the general audience, it makes it seem like something that was justified. It didn't burn to me thinking this is going to be Nuno's last game, and I think that's because I wondered, would he get a shot at Europe first? Would he be given that opportunity to show what he could do? Because the irony of this is that Postecoglou's best results for Spurs have been in Europe, and the way he set out his side has been very different in the Premier League to how they were at the back end of the Europa League run. So what Postecoglou are we going to see? And if it's the Postecoglou from the latter stages of the Europa League, that's probably getting closer towards what Nuno probably could have done himself, funnily enough. So it's really interesting from that point of view. But just to go back to your question, every time I heard from Nuno, the way he spoke so honestly and also so calmly. When people say, do you think you'll still be here? He was so calm about it. He knew what was happening. He knew the writing was on the wall, and he knew that when it comes to it, and if we go back a couple of years with Steve Cooper's situation when he left, and there would have been Forest fans feeling, why is this happening? This isn't fair on Cooper and what he's done for the club, and maybe there's be a bit more respectful, give him more time perhaps. Nuno's come in. He didn't work for him at Spurs. Why are we picking him up? And now we're back at this situation again. So I think it's a good sign from Nuno's point of view that things played out the way they did in terms of fan reaction, is that he's leaving with good feeling amongst the supporters, which is great for a manager to be sacked. And then the supporters actually, we liked you, and you did well for us, before he maybe hit the ceiling that Marinakis thought he might hit if he stayed on as manager. And you don't want to be in that position as a manager where fans are like, get him out. So he leaves on good terms, and I'm sure we'll see him back in football soon.
Couple of kind of outside looking in questions, James, from the player's point of view then. Firstly, I suppose the big question is, if you change manager, you want next one to be an upgrade. So in your opinion, is Ange an upgrade? And secondly, how do sackings work from a player's point of view? Do you often get notice, we've made a change, or does they keep it quiet so it doesn't leak normally?
So to answer the first question, do I think he's an upgrade? I think it's very harsh to it feels harsh to say those sort of things so soon after Nuno has been sacked, because Nuno's brought some of the best times in recent memory to all Forest fans. I think the recruitment over the summer is kind of the way that Forest want to go. The plethora of attacking talent that they've brought in over the summer, I think Marinakis will look at that and go, I need a manager who can get the best out of those players. You look at Postecoglou's start at Spurs in his first season. I think he won 8 and drew 2 of his first 10 games, and everyone's thinking Spurs are in a title challenge. And then the Chelsea game happens where they get 2 men sent off and he plays with a line of 7 on the halfway line. And then you kind of see the other side of Postecoglou. I mean, Spurs still were within 1 game of the Champions League in the first season. I think recent memory of Postecoglou's performances is tainted because Spurs, being honest, just tanked the Premier League. Their best hope of a successful season was winning the Europa League. So everything was put into that. And I think in knockout football, in European football, it's different to the league. So he's gone a lot more pragmatic in his approach, and ultimately it's proven to be successful. They had I think they had 3 shots in that final to United's 18, but they got the job done during the Champions League. So I think, if, as Seb said, if we get early signs Postecoglou with attacking football, I think it's going to be exciting to be a Forest fan and see how it unfolds. But from a player's perspective, if a manager is getting sacked, you will be told before it gets out. You kind of, again, as fans, you'll see kind of links and rumours in the media that it could potentially happen. Look, I think there's very few sackings that happen sort of out of the blue. This one, I think there's more that's gone on behind the scenes that meets the eye. The players will probably be privy to that. Does it affect them mid-season? Well, I say it's early season, but the season started. I think it will. It'll affect preparation. Especially at this time with players only reporting back for duty on Thursday from internationals. He's got 2 days before the Arsenal game. But yeah, it's one of them players who find themselves out the side or new signings have got a clean slate. Players that have done well. Again, as a manager, you probably wouldn't look to come in and change things drastically, especially the first game. If you've only had 2 training sessions, you want to kind of work to the same sort of, not principles, but get what's working for Forest and what has been working, and this shift to a possession-based attacking brand of football, which I think will suit Postecoglou. So it feels harsh saying it, but if we get the best of Postecoglou as a Forest manager, then I do think it will be an upgrade.
Well, 1,000 people.
Matt, I was going to say it's quite funny. Obviously, James is playing under the longest-serving manager in top 4 divisions.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I don't think you're going to be feeling. We have a unique situation where the manager's dad is the chairman, so I can't imagine those comments being coming out in the public about his dad.
I don't think so. Absolutely not.
That's pretty safe. That.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, James plays for Harrogate Town, obviously, which regular viewers will all know, certainly. Over 1,000 people with us in 12 minutes to hear live that Ange is officially the new manager. Do us a favour and hit like while I read out a bit of Evangelos Marinakis' statement. We're bringing a coach to the club who has a proven and consistent record of winning trophies. His experience of coaching teams at the highest level, along with his desire to build something special at Forest, makes him a fantastic person to help us on our journey and achieve consistently all our ambitions. I think I need my eyes testing. I'm struggling to read this. Maybe it's lack of sleep. After gaining promotions to the Premier League, then building consistently season after season to secure European football, we must now take the right step to compete with the very best and challenge for trophies. Ange has the credentials and the track record to do this, and we're excited he's joining us on our ambitious journey. No contract length in the press release, but it's reported it's until 2027. Mark, what's your reaction then? Now it's there in black and white.
Yeah, I guess we're trying to read things into that. Are we trying to read into that this was a decision that they made a lot earlier, that we needed to make a change to go to the next level? I do like speculating, but I'm tired of it, to be honest. And, people will be reading into those words exactly that, I imagine. It's like, this is not a reaction to Nuno forcing Marinakis' hand. I think this is more Marinakis and maybe others feeling that another solution was required in that role. And perhaps you mentioned the players that we brought in over the summer. Was the recruitment made with that in mind? I know we've talked about the likes of Zinchenko, for example. We know that Postecoglou plays with inverted fullbacks. Zinchenko is one of the best inverted fullbacks in the Premier League, in my opinion. He plays that role very well. Is it a coincidence that Zinchenko's at our club and then a week later we bring in Postecoglou? Probably not, I would say. So, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's clear that they see that a change was required, and maybe that was communicated through to Nuno, and that explains his, I guess, outburst is what you can call it in the press, and the timing of it, which took us all by surprise. It wasn't very Nuno. You can speculate that it was triggered by stuff behind the scenes that was getting through to him that really brought that out. And we are where we are now. I think we can pick the bones out of it and speculate all we like, but I think we've got to just now look forward. But at the same time, thank Nuno for, like Seb and James have said, for everything that he's done for the club and where he's got us. And and the experiences that we went through last season were just fantastic. And I never thought we'd get that again in my lifetime. So I'm very, very thankful to Nuno and what he's done, but and very sad that it's happened like this, in a way that obviously did get to him as a human being. I think he was a good person, perhaps didn't deserve to be treated in that way. But now we are where we are, and we've got to look forward and support the man coming in.
Yeah, Nuno signed a new contract in, I looked, late June until 2028. This one is 2027. I don't know if we read anything into that. Perhaps I'll throw that one to Seb in 1 minute, or probably less than that. Just a quick word for Trent navigation. A reminder, England do play tonight. Ellie Anderson might play, Morgan Gibbs-White might play, and Nikola Milenkovic might play for Serbia. You can watch the game at the Trent Nav, live on the big screens and inside the pub, and you can get your dinner there as well. And it's double stamps on your beer loyalty cards as well. So thanks as ever to the Nav for their support. Seb, feel free to comment on that, and I'll put a graphic on screen as well. This is around the differing styles, and this is my reservation. I've got two reservations around the appointment, because I actually think Postecoglou's done a good job in general where he's been, but this is last season on screen, and it's stats for distance covered versus sprints, and it's basically about the playing styles. And on the graph from Opta, Nick from the BBC, Spurs run a lot more, they sprint a lot more compared to Forest. They were the lowest number of sprints, lowest distance covered. That included individual players as well. So I know obviously we've evolved, and our possession stats the last 3 games are different, and you can see what we're trying to do, Seb, but it feels like a very wild departure from one manager to another. Would that be a concern for you as a neutral?
I'm just looking at that. I think that graphic was just slapped on Marinakis' desk. And he was looking around thinking, oh yeah, that's where the problem is. My biggest when you look at the sides there on that graphic, and you look at Bournemouth, Spurs, Brighton and Newcastle, is that there were a lot of injury issues for those sides. And the centre-half area, I would say, at Forest doesn't have the depth that maybe other areas have been addressed with. So can Murillo, can Milenkovic play in this Postecoglou style as we think it, well, what it was at Spurs? But will he play that way at Forest? We don't know that yet. Because this way of playing under Tottenham, maybe he played it because of the players he had and he felt he could play that way, and he will change at Forest. We don't know this yet. That's obviously the thing to say. And when I think back and look at some of his other sides, it's again hard to compare. I remember commentating on the Asia Cup, I think it would have been 2015, and he was managing Australia, and they were an interesting team to watch. They were a fun team to watch. They did play with a lot of verve in the way they attacked. But then they were playing in the Asia Cup. They were one of the better sides. Celtic is the same sort of situation where you are one of the better sides in the league. When he came and did it with Spurs, obviously initially it worked, but last season it proved a bit much. I don't know. I can't answer yet how Postecoglou will look under being Forest manager. And I think that's because of what I said. I mean, he's had varying roles. He's travelled around, and we don't know this thing yet. I also keep saying Postecoglou because everybody says Ange, and you don't want another manager where we refer to them as with their first name. Again, you're from Nuno to Ange forever. So I'm going to say Postecoglou for now, having said Nuno since he arrived in England.
Look, do you think, James, that, I mean, does he have to change the way he played? Postecoglou, he sort of did it last season in the Europa League final. I think you mentioned 26% possession, totally ceded the ball to United. Away to Frankfurt in the quarters, 39% possession. So I feel like he might have it in him. But if he plays this high line, and I'll ask you some specifics about that as a player, but if he plays that high line, is that just stubborn suicide or not?
In answer to your question, he doesn't have to change it. It's entirely up to him, I guess, if he wants to continue to play in the manner that he did at Spurs. You could argue which sort of manner was more successful. One bought him a Europa League, one won him a few games in the Premier League, and then kind of had its significant flaws. I think managers these days, and you look at Amorim as a prime example, their value as a manager is sticking to their principles. And if you divert from those principles, then you kind of, I don't know, you don't get the kind of acceptance that you do. I think people go, right, look at Russell Martin, look at Vincent Kompany, they go to the Premier League. Vincent Kompany continues to play the way he does at Burnley, gets a Bayern Munich job. So it's almost that like failing upwards metric of kind of sticking to his principles. For me, if again, I'm not a manager, I'm a player, but if I was a manager approaching this kind of Nottingham Forest squad and kind of going forward, I'd first and foremost be looking at the strengths of the squad. How can I get the best out of these players? Because it's all right saying I want to play this high line, I want to build from the back and play this brand of football. But if you haven't got the components to be able to do it, then it could turn nasty and toxic very quickly. So I think there has to be a balance between, look, we know that Ange likes to play attacking football. As Forest fans, the recruitment, Forest fans want to see the best out of these attacking players that they've got. But Forest's success was built on defensive stability, having a settled back four, having a solid goalkeeper, playing from a structure and looking to counter. So now it's going the other way, which is fine, because I think Forest have evolved as a team. The squad's got stronger. There's a lot more squad depth. But I think this could potentially come unstuck in the defensive third of the pitch. I think Murillo, I'm less concerned about. Milenkovic, probably have a few more concerns. Is he able to play that style of play? Spurs had Van der Ven, probably the quickest defender in the Premier League, who allows Spurs to play that way. So I think now the window's shut. This is Forest squad until January. Do Forest have the components to build from the back in this way? I'd probably say not.
I mean, I guess Mark Murillo, great on the ball, no worries at all. I'm not actually sure how quick he is because he doesn't have to sprint back that much. Milenkovic, I'm really worried for if he plays this way. He hates being dragged out wide. If he's going to be on the halfway line running back with, I don't know who's it going to be, Gyökeres or whoever, then do you fear for him if they go that way?
I do, but Seb said it. I don't think we can make assumptions because he is an experienced football manager, and like James mentioned, surely his first task will be to assess what he's got and what he's got to work with. He may come in and that's who we are, mate, kind of approach. He may come in and go like Amorim has and gone, this is my system. The players will play it regardless of whether they're gifted enough to get results. And I don't think he will. I'd like to think he's going to come in and fully assess what he's got. And while it won't be a Klopp to slot kind of transition, which was almost seamless, there will be growing pains, teething troubles, whatever you want to call it, I'm sure. But
will fans, sorry to interrupt there, will fans have patience for that? Because they're already not happy.
I think we've got to have, haven't we? I mean, we can't expect it to be a seamless transition from Nuno to Ange Postecoglou. You've shown the difference in the way they play. We're going to have to expect a period of transition, and in that time, the players are going to get to know the way the manager wants to play, and the manager's got to get to know the players he's got at his disposal. If we expect immediate results, we're not being reasonable. So I'd like to think we're not going to be in that frame of mind. We've got to give it time. In a way, Arsenal at the Emirates might be an ideal starting point because there's not high expectations in that game, and he might well surprise us. He might well surprise Arsenal. So I think we've got to just stay in a positive frame of mind, as have the players. The supporters definitely have to. And we have to see what unfolds. And also, just let's not just presume he's going to come in and play exactly the template he played at Spurs, because let's give him some credit to be able to adapt that to the squad that he's got.
I think so. Well, I hope so. Which players, we'll talk about players, a couple that might struggle, one other, but if he plays that way. But to me, there's quite a long list of players, Seb, that could flourish in this style of play. A few spring to mind. What about for you? Anyone you're looking at, I think, these players could really kick on and fit, an exciting brand of football.
Well, Gibbs White, absolutely. I mean, it has to be off the top of it. I think he's a player who loves that. If we're basing it off Postecoglou in charge of Spurs in the Premier League last season, I think he'd like that almost off the cuff way of playing and the game being played at high intensity and one touch. I think he likes the game like that, Gibbs White, with the one touch football movement, running off the ball. Weirdly, that's probably why it didn't happen for him against West Ham, because West Ham changed their defence, changed the defensive system. I think that probably caught Forest by surprise because West Ham defended pretty well in that game. And it was more of a game where Forest had to break a side down. And I don't know if that necessarily suits Gibbs White in the same way. So he would certainly be into that. Let's see some of the Brazilian players that have come in as well. They might benefit from it. It feels very much a case of, if Postecoglou plays that way as he did at Spurs in the Premier League, and let's go back to his first few months in the Premier League rather than the last year. If they play like that, what players would benefit, assuming that he plays that way? And if that was the case, Gibbs White would be up there for, I'm sure. I don't know how many of the Forest players would enjoy having to keep running back behind them to cover runners running off them. Even Murillo, I don't know if they would enjoy that. I think they like the contact, those defenders. They like to be close to players. So I'm not sure. I mean, Sangare, I don't believe would. That's assuming he would even be in the mix if Douglas Luiz ends up being the main man. So Anderson, it'd be interesting to see him playing a game at a pace like that again. But it does feel like speculation. I'm very much one of the people. I like to have a template. I like to have seen something and say that worked or that didn't work. We're in the unknown right now, and so we're only speculating about the players who would do well. I'm just thinking of the players who might find it tricky, and I do look at Milenkovic in that sense. I just can't see him on the halfway line, looking over his shoulder. Can't see it in the Premier League. Just every single striker, pretty much in the Premier League, would be able to run in behind him if that was the case. He wants to feel the contact. He wants to compete in the air. He wants to clear his penalty area. He wants to marshal that zone. He does not want to be in the centre circle, just hoping that if the play comes, the ball's near him and he can clatter someone on halfway. That's the one that strikes me straight away. Me thinking, but all the forward line, or even the players they brought in, I think they'll all love that, because every forward attacking player wants to play for a manager who seems to want to play the game on the front foot like that.
Yeah, Chris Wood's an interesting one. But they signed Solanke to play a sort of Wood role. So I don't know. I think Chris Wood might be
Forest,
all right,
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's a transfer I missed, I was going to say.
No, when the Spurs got him in, obviously, to be the number 9 and replace Kane, and he played it wasn't like an out-and-out number 9, so it'll be interesting how they utilise him. Well, I've got a professional goalkeeper here. I should ask about Matt Sells, again, with some with some caveats and assumptions, but these are stats from last season, Belly. This is about goalkeeper distribution primarily. Long goal kicks last season, Forest 65%, Spurs 7%. So league highest versus league lowest by a margin as well. Long passes 73% versus 16%. So highest versus lowest again. Throwing the ball out, Sells did it 83 times, the lowest in the league. Spurs did it 192, the third highest. And total passes, Matt Sells 662, again the lowest in the league. Versus 1,047. So obviously Nuno uses goalkeeper in a very particular way. I think he was all right with his feet when he first signed, as I recall, taking over from Matt Turner. So not really a great barometer, but just how much of a difference is this going to be for Matt Sells, do we think?
I think people will be quick to say, "Oh, Forest need a goalkeeper that can play with the feet if they want to play this brand of football that Ange, we're again assuming is going to bring in." I think we can safely say he's going to want to build from the back, particularly looking at those numbers. Now, Matt Sells is a top level goalkeeper. He's comfortable with the ball at his feet. He will be able to play in that way. The problem with trying to incorporate this building philosophy with 2 days training, this takes time. This takes a full pre-season. This takes 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks to drill in, because it's not just Matt Sells you're trying to drill this into. This is the entire back four. This is the holding midfield players. This is the attacking players. Everyone needs to be in sync and unity, and trying to coach that in the space of 2 days. That's where my worry is. Now, look, Sells has to be comfortable risking the ball. He has to be able to execute under pressure, which, look, he's a top level goalkeeper. He'll be able to do it. It's just that getting everyone on the same page. When does the pivot? When does Elliot Anderson drop in and get on the ball? When does he play to Murillo? When does he go to Milenkovic? Okay, how does that look if he's pressed from his left shoulder? Like, there's so many different ways to look at it, and so many complex aspects to playing out of the back, whereas it can be kind of misconstrued as, oh, we've just got to play and break the press and play through the line. No, there's method to if you want to call it madness, there's method to that way of playing that takes time to instill. So that's where I think Forest fans in particular will have to be patient with, because if they are going to go all out and try it from Saturday, if it is going to be something he's going to do whilst they're playing, there's going to be problems. They're going to give up goals, and Ange is comfortable with that style of play. It will get better the more that it's kind of practiced, the more it's implemented. But yeah, I do foresee kind of a few problems if you see Matt Sells putting the ball down and you've got Milenkovic and Murillo in a 6-yard box. Then I think I would be a bit apprehensive, not due to lack of quality of any of the players involved, just due to the lack of cohesion and what it requires, particularly from other areas of the pitch, to be able to play that way. Because ultimately you're trying to draw the press out, you're trying to draw the strikers onto the defenders. So then that means there's going to be gaps somewhere else. So then Forest need to make sure that someone's in those gaps and that they're filling in. It gets complex and complex the more layers and pieces you add to it. So yeah, that's my only kind of concern. Not the players doing it, it's just the unity and the cohesion of it.
Matt, can I just add to that? Sorry, just before you let
You don't need to put your hand up, don't worry.
Yeah, well, I feel, but when I was talking about Milenkovic in terms of him worried about running him behind, it's not because he's slow. I think he's relatively quick. But I think it's that sense of sort of what James is touching on here is the idea of, if you're a side used to playing a certain way and then you're asked to do something completely different, is it in your nature to feel like you're that team? So Milenkovic, even playing for Serbia, say, I remember covering him in the World Cup and they played Cameroon. And there's a game where when it started to get a bit stretched and started to get a bit chaotic, Serbian defenders weren't happy with that game. They wanted a game of control, a game where they were on the ball, a game of set pieces. If we will find something out. We might find out that Milenkovic absolutely loves it. We might find out that Murillo absolutely loves it. But we're only basing it on what we've seen so far and what we can believe will be the case. Maybe he's seen something. So it'll be exciting to see, that's for sure.
Seb, what do you think about, I'm just looking through the chat, a lot of the points are, yeah, but they finished 17th. Is that too much of a stick to beat them with? Because, as Belly said, they blew off the Premier League, basically, to put everything on red in terms of winning the Europa League. Is that too much of an emphasis?
Not at all. If you look at Tottenham last season, finishing 17th in the league is not good enough. It is not good enough. That's the reason why Postecoglou was essentially let go in the end. And they even said it in their statement. Levy said it in his statement that it was a case of, the Premier League is our main focus in any season. And for a club of Tottenham standing to finish 17th, that is not good enough. And there were a lot of games where you were watching and thinking, what on earth are they trying to achieve here by sticking to this principle? And maybe he felt just inside, he thought, well, there are 3 teams here who are definitely going to finish above and I can get away with this, perhaps. So again, it's madness because you're trying to keep your job, surely. That, to me, is a justifiable concern for Forest supporters because you don't want to be in that situation. Imagine that replayed itself and Forest won the Europa League but were relegated from the Premier League. I think you can't to put yourself in that situation. That's your best case scenario, is winning the Europa League. But what if you don't win the Europa League in that final? You lose that final on penalties and you've been relegated from the Premier League because you've adopted that approach. Maybe he did it to conserve the fitness of the players because, as we said, the style was quite demanding. Even though there's an element that people would deny that's the case, but you showed that graph, and Bournemouth had a lot of injury issues. I mean, it was amazing they got through some games in the season actually, and Brighton had issues. I know a lot of teams did in the league, but you have to say it has to play a part surely in a player's conditioning to be playing at that intensity all the time. Because if it was something you could do all the time, then every player would do it, wouldn't they, to get that marginal gain? So you have to balance it somewhere. I think the concerns are justified because we need to see how he plays. The Emirates is one of those games. If he threw caution to the wind and surprised Arsenal 1-0, I mean, it's a great win to win there. And just think of Anfield last season. These are memorable moments. Is it the blueprint, though, for taking the club to the next level? Because that's what Marinakis is looking for. Looking back at his time, obviously, in charge of Olympiacos, and the managers he's tended to, if they didn't win things, they were out. So this is just the basis of it. It's building on that. He said, right, we're now on to this next stage, and Postecoglou is the person to take us deep into Europe. but you can't finish 17th in the Premier League. Even Forest can't. I just don't think Marinakis would take that even by January, February.
Which runs a bit counter to what you were saying, Mark, around patience. I mean, he's coming in 3 games with Marinakis. He's coming in. He gives managers leeway, I think, more than people perceive, but he's not going to take. He wants, at least Europe. I think he wants European football next season and a top 10 finish. And we're 3 games into a season, and we're talking about potentially revamping the way we play. Do they go hand in hand or not?
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, though, that we were heading this way anyway. If you look at the data so far, we're like 3rd top for passes made. We're 5th for possession. So even if Ange wasn't coming in, this was the way that the players were being transitioned to play anyway, for one reason or another. What was behind that, whether that was Nuno or it came from somewhere else, we were going that way. We were going to a possession-based game with more passing, picking open defences. That was the style of football we were exploring. So maybe the step from where we were going with Nuno to where we're going to end up going with Ange isn't as major as we think. It is if you compare the numbers last season to Ange's season at Spurs. But as I said, it seems like Nuno was transitioning the team that way anyway. So perhaps it's not going to need as long as we would expect. I think I hope we're bringing him in with a degree of, well, he's going to need time to bed down and get to know the players and get his system implemented. I agree that Marinakis is not the most patient, but I still think that we've got to be realistic. I've always had concerns about fighting on 2 fronts. Like if we want to target a top 10 Premier League finish, can we also go deep in the Europa League? I think that's a big ask. Manchester United and Spurs showed it last season. Yes, Spurs were very, very unlucky with injuries, and I do think that was the reason why Ange targeted Europe, because he saw that as the chance to win a trophy and get them into the Champions League, and he was proved correct. He did forego the Premier League to do that. Whether that got the backing of Spurs, backroom staff, probably not, because he got sacked. I don't know. I think we've got to show patience, and I hope the owner does. I hope the supporters does. The players will. It's just how quickly they adjust. They're professional footballers. They're very high quality professional footballers. They should adjust quickly, so we can expect to see results fairly quickly, but let's not have too much expectation going into the Emirates.
Just on injuries, I looked it up. Last season, Forest, the best injury record in the league, 77 games missed collectively. Spurs, 193, 41 separate injuries, 1,500 days lost. So league best record versus league second worst. I'm probably asking you to play amateur physio here, Belly, but is there a correlation between style of play and number of busted hamstrings for Van der Ven and guys like that?
Yeah, I mean, it would suggest that. Yeah, I think you would have to look deeper into the injury stats, what kind of injuries they are. If they're repeat injuries, if it's muscle strains, if they're happening in games, then yeah, you'd have to link that. But look, that's the way he wants to play. That's the demands that he puts on his players. So yeah, Forest are in a better position this year than they would have been last year in terms of squad depth. I think beyond sort of 13, 14 players, I think the drop off was more significant than it is this year. The squad definitely looks a lot stronger and built to kind of deal with the demands that he's going to put on his players. But yeah, if your running numbers are going from, I don't know, 60k covered a week to 75k in training, and your game stats, you're an extra, I don't know, 500 meters a game high speed running, then yeah, it is going to impact you. I mean, luckily I don't have to get involved with stuff like that in games. But yeah, it's going to be different. It's with anything, it's going to be that sort of first day at school. There'll be a bit of a buzz around the place, like new manager, players will want to impress. You'll get that initial kind of probably a bit of extra effort on Saturday from the Forest players. But look, the injury record isn't great. So do you put that at the manager's door? Do you put it at physio's door? Is it S&C? All these departments work together. But yeah, it's hard when you put data up like that. It's hard not to argue that the style of play is impacting the number of injuries.
1,250 people watching live, which is lovely. Thanks very much. Do us a favour and hit like.
What's the swing towards the decision? I would suggest people aren't happy. Would be my guess. I can't
in the
see
live chat. No, I'm reading the chat. I'm not seeing. I don't know. Is it 80-20? I don't know. I feel like
But because I think it's what people are working with. There's nothing. Why would you be overly positive about Postecoglou unless you'd seen his record even before Spurs, and such as a really experienced manager who has taken sides to trophies before? But if you're, most supporters will probably see it is based on his time at Tottenham, and they'll look at that and think, if he plays like that at Forest, we're in big trouble, because Tottenham had, you could say Tottenham had better players than Forest, right? On paper, you might say that. Certainly in that style of play and trying to deal with that style of play, perhaps. And even they were all over the place by the end, we have to say. And then the Europa League. Yes, Spurs won the Europa League, but the quality of teams in it, which conversely makes it achievable for Forest to go deep in the competition. The Champions League teams don't drop in. The quality of teams they had to face just wasn't there to maybe take advantage. And he adapted the style for a knockout competition, essentially. So there's just so many unknown things. I think there has been times, and we think of the early days of Postecoglou, and you said Pochettino there, Postecoglou, which makes you think that Marinakis, that's what he's looking at. He wants to see a style of football. And Mark said they were leaning towards that way. The Brentford win was a great watch. And some of the football being played in that game made me think, wow, this is something. Forest at home this season are going to be a tough nut to crack, but they're also going to show some style as well as with the substance that they showed last season. But then one game can just strip that away, and that's what West Ham did. And that's the Premier League. That is the Premier League. So this is that I can understand the unease totally, and time will only tell. This is the thing. But the fact is that the unease is justified from Forest supporters.
Yeah, I think just kind of going on that, like, it's whenever a manager gets sacked, it obviously dregs up emotions amongst fans. Look, Nuno was well liked amongst Forest fans. When he was appointed, was everyone straight on the Nuno bandwagon? Probably not. But now we're looking at this. I think we're probably looking at it too deeply, in the sense that there is a shift in style of play, and this is the style of play that Postecoglou wants to be brought in. But let's be under no illusions. If Nuno doesn't make those comments about Marinakis, he's still in the job, like, regardless of what's gone on. So there's more to it that meets the eye. Look, finishing 17th, winning the Europa League against a bang average Man United side isn't good enough. And like you said, it's not going to be deemed success for Forest if they finish 17th in the Premier League this season. But yeah, I think whilst it's okay to be not on board with the decision, I think you can kind of have a foot in both camps. You can kind of feel for Nuno, but also get behind Postecoglou, which I think is going to be important for Forest fans going forward.
Just on the style of play thing, Mark, like, Cooper didn't play great football. He actually did when we got promoted and when we first came up. It was entertaining. I don't watch much Olympiacos, but I don't think Mendilibar is known for amazing football or anything like that. It's interesting, Marinakis, if that's right, he and Edu want that shift. I mean, is that an ego thing that, like, oh, we're at the top table now? Is that fair or not? Is Essentials play good football?
I think he probably sees that Nuno's style, while it got us close to Champions League football, in order to get to that level again and sustain it, we need to change. And I think I probably agree with that. I think that, the way Nuno played was effective last season, and he did similar at Wolves. Whether or not you can repeat that season upon season upon season and get results and push into the top 10 every season, I don't know. There's no question I was doubting that going into this season. I was thinking we're going to have to adapt. We're going to have to play differently. And obviously that got through to Nuno, from whoever influenced him. He felt the same as well. So we were transitioning the way we played. And I guess, well, we're speculating, aren't we? I guess we can only look at it and think, was there some objection to the players that the recruitment team were bringing in? And was those objections what triggered Marinakis to think, well, maybe Nuno's not the man, because the players that we think that we need to recruit aren't the players that Nuno is asking for or feels he can work with. So we need to bring somebody in who can. We don't know. Again, it's speculation, but there's evidence to say there's something in that, because there's evidence that Lewis wasn't his sign-in, Hutchinson wasn't his sign-in. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that I don't disagree with the fact that we had to change our style. Obviously, I disagree that we had to force a manager out to do it. But there's no question that you know, we're now we're on the cusp of a very different change in the way we play based on what we saw from Postecoglou last season at Spurs and how we played.
Seb's hands up.
Please, sir.
May I
follow
on
that?
desks at the end of the podcast as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Davies.
I think you could see from Marinakis' point of view, you can see it based on his record. He's kept the managers on at Olympiacos who've won trophies. I was looking through the record. Pedro Martins is the one who's played. I think he managed 200 odd games for them, right? And he was very successful. He was winning trophies. And then the current manager won the Conference League, for example, hence why he's still there. He's won the Greek League, hence why he's still there. In Cooper and Nuno's case, they made rods for their own back by doing well, but not winning something. I know it's incredible to say, but this is genuinely how the owner would think. So he's looking at Cooper and saying, right, he's achieved promotion. What else? I need more. I need more. I need more. And then as soon as he sees that manager hit their ceiling in his head, he just goes, right, that's it. No, next one. Because that's the ruthless nature of football. It's just the way it is. And it will be the same with Postecoglou. There'll be a point where he'll deem him not quite at the standard we need to go on to the next level. Either that's through success or failure. That's a relative success. But if Postecoglou wins the Europa League, it will obviously buy him some time. It's that simple. You have to look around the Premier League, and a manager is always deemed successful when they win things, essentially. Because, I'll give you a case. Some of the teams towards the top end of the table say, look at in Emery's situation, Arteta and even Eddie Howe. People can say these managers have done good jobs, but they still come under criticism for not winning things when they've had the chance to win things. And Eddie Howe, I brought him in because that changed, because he won the League Cup, and all of a sudden it just gives you favour. It gives you something to cling on to. Football is that simple. Success is everything, and every manager and player gets marked by trophies, unfortunately.
What's our ceiling as a club then? Because
two European Cups, Matt.
Are we going to do that again? I mean, we could win the Europa League and play Champions League, couldn't we? I suppose is it realistic for us to finish top 5 or top 4 in the league? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, you nearly did it last season.
Yeah.
So
massively overachieved. So
and then fell off at the back end the last few games. We were thought at one point we thought they're comfortably going to finish, in the Champions League places, and then it just did crumble towards the end. So, and because of that, people have seen it now. So of course, these things can happen. Other clubs can have off seasons. Things can go wrong. Chelsea could fall off a cliff this campaign, and then all of a sudden Forest above them. Brighton can do the same. Newcastle can do the same. So it's perfectly possible. And as I'll say again, Marinakis thinks it's possible.
Yeah, that's it. I think Marinakis looks at it and goes, we should be top 6 next season. Maybe not this season with the new manager coming in and Europa League, but I think he's got to be targeting top 6 next season. And he'll see this appointment as a way of getting that.
Yeah, well, if we can live with PSR and keep a squad together, but that's a conversation for another day, I guess.
Don't mention those 3 letters.
I know. We want to get you on to talk about football.
So
matches,
boring.
Like,
I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear PSR.
Just one more question before I ask the final question to each of you. Just one point I haven't said about Ange, James, is when he left. I mean, I've made it sound like he's flogged players to death, but his players loved him when they left. There was a real team spirit, and Forest's success of the last 2 managers has been built on a strong dressing room, and it feels like that is one of his strong suits. That he does look like a good man manager to me. Is that something that you would perceive or not?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that carries a lot more weight in football than people actually realise. If you've got a manager who you want to play for and you're prepared to run for on a match day, and you buy into their philosophy and you buy into the sessions, because turning up for training on Thursday, their daily schedule is going to be drastically different to what it was before. When you change a manager, some want to train at different times, some believe in different routines before training, some will have longer meetings, some will have shorter meetings. The content of those meetings is different. So you're adapting, and if you get a schedule and are happy in your sort of day-to-day training routine, then yeah, it does carry a lot of weight. And like I said, I think Postecoglou builds success on sort of being that manager who can galvanise the team and get players to want to play for him. And like I said, Nuno had that in abundance, and look how successful Forest were last season. So yeah, it's, like I said, time for change. But as a bloke, as a manager, I think, look, we alluded to he was kind of maybe a bit dour in press conferences, but if you're getting peppered by media every sort of after every game and having to sort of put a front on, because look, managers can't come out and say what they really think or what's going on in the press conference, or because look what happens to Nuno. You come out and say it and you lose your job. So yeah, there's that kind of being able to sort of back the questions off whilst also trying to be a good guy and trying to get results on the pitch. Ultimately you'll be judged on the results on the pitch. So I think for me going forward, let's kind of see where Forest are after 10 games. First of all, have the results improved? Secondly, has the style of play improved? I think Forest fans would take 10 wins if the style of play is awful. So yeah, it's a results business, and let's hope he can bring that.
Would Marinakis take of the result if the style of play is awful? Going back to the old conversation there, I don't know. I mean, Nuno
if he wants to win something, like I said, if Marinakis wants to win, like look at last season. If Forest would have, if this happens to Forest and they finish 17th, but he wins the Europa League, what does he do then? Because by his logic, he's won something. So is that deemed as a successful season? Look, don't get me wrong, the performances in the Premier League were abysmal, but I don't know. I think if Nuno had won these 3 games, it wouldn't have changed it because of what's gone on behind the scenes. But I think with Postecoglou, like if results are there, then what the Forest fans really have to moan about? If he comes in and hits the ground running, I do think he'll be expected to hit the ground running straight away because of the expectation that's been built up last year. Through the performances, and like you said, I do think Marinakis will be wanting more this season. I don't think he'd be happy with a downgrade on last season. So yeah, the pressure's on for him, but yeah, if he delivers on the pitch, then I think for me that, and Forest fans, I think that's ultimately all that matters.
Yeah, well, we're a pretty fickle bunch of football fans, because I couldn't have foreseen Nuno being out, and the tide turned against him so rapidly from FA Cup semi-final. Maybe that was where things fell away. Certainly Leicester at home, to be where we are now, I'm still surprised by it. Last question then for each of you. Start with you, Mark. You did your pre-season predictions. I can't remember what you said. Would you revise them now, or is this completely a holding pattern and we're entirely in the dark and 80% of the chat are jumping to conclusions, do you think?
No, I said 12th, and I think semi-finals, Europa. I think that I think we can achieve 12th. I think that obviously Marinakis will be looking at beyond that. And I think that prediction was made before we had all the signings in. So to be fair, I think we can still push top 10. I think it's very difficult to go deep in Europa League and finish top 10 with the squad that we've got. We've got to be fortunate with injuries, but I think we can do it. I think Seb mentioned other teams can fall away. So it's not just about what you do. It's about what the teams around you are doing. And right now, it's only 3 games in, but already there's a hint that the consistency isn't going to be there. There's going to be teams beating other teams all the time, and there's not going to be one superpower. Maybe Liverpool will run away with it, but the rest of the group, I think, will be pretty close. So I think that there's every chance we can push top 10, but much depends on how Ange gels with the players. I think also how he gels with the supporters. We've got a part to play. We've mentioned that there's going to be a feeling of unease. Well, the home games are going to be critical, and that unease, we don't want that coming across to the players and the manager on a home game. Luckily, it looks like his first 3 or 4 games are all going to be away, so he'll get time to settle in, get some results, and perhaps win some supporters over, because our support is going to be crucial to his success and the team's success, as it always has been.
Last one for you, Seb. Is this a boom or bust appointment? He's going to finish 6th and win the Europa League, or it's going to all go to hell and he'll be gone by Christmas? Or is that just playing into reputations too much? How do you think it plays out?
I have absolutely no idea how this one plays out, but mainly because it felt like I knew this was coming. I sensed that Postecoglou, when he was going to return to English football, it was going to be Forest, and therefore, the players signed again. There's a lot of youth in there. There's a lot of pace and agility and players who are dynamic in this team who've been brought in. So it would suggest that, yes, we're going to see some exciting football from Forest, but the Premier League is tough. I mean, every time I do a game and I think to myself, you look at it, well, sometimes when you're watching on TV and you're just thinking, Liverpool are miles ahead of everybody else and City are miles ahead of everybody else and Arsenal, you'll never score against them. But when you see these games in person, the margins are tiny. And these are top players. These are top teams. It's tough. The West Ham game was a prime example of that. A feeling before was that all Forest had to do was turn up and they would have rolled West Ham over. That's the form that West Ham are in. But then they change their system, and you realise they have good players. They bring a player like Somerville off the bench. He could start for Forest. Somerville could start for Forest, no problem. There are top players everywhere around the league. So I do have an unease about it in the sense that if you come in and try to say, right, I'm just going to throw this way of playing at the Premier League and it's just going to click, it's so much risk in doing that. But these are not stupid people, I'd like to think. So that's not going to happen. I mean, I said that because people go, oh, they are. But I feel like that would be completely a naive thing to do. Let's bring the word out. I'm not going to give you a prediction, Matt, because I've absolutely no idea how this is going to go. But in the back of my mind, I just feel it doesn't feel that great, I would say. But if it clicks, it will be a fun watch. And from a neutral's point of view, that's what I ultimately care about. I'm sorry. If it is a good watch, if we get some 4-3s and some, that would be the perfect thing. The thing that's got to be mentioned since Forest have been promoted, they've beaten Liverpool, they've beaten Manchester City, they've beaten Arsenal. They've picked up big results against big teams. They have players who are capable of doing this, and that is the belief, and that's what, so say it again, Marinakis believes this side can do really well. Whether they will or not, let's see. There's no prediction in there after all that waffle.
Belly, I'll give you the opportunity to make a wild prediction that can be clipped up and thrown back at you. How do you, gut instinct? Like, how do you think it's going to go?
I think for Forest fans, being back in Europe is such a huge occasion for the football club after so long away. So I think the focus for Forest fans and the metric of success, I think, is more, in my opinion, weighted towards the Europa League. Because if you're just playing in the Premier League week in, week out, I think, we've got to get into Europe next season, or we've got to get into Europe next season. And that kind of goes on. It's like, okay, but we're in Europe this season. So for me, if you said a mid-table finish with a deep run in the Europa League, I think Forest fans will be extremely happy with that. Look, it's a competition that Forest can go and win. And I think, Forest will be in that kind of mid-table bunch. But look, if it clicks, could be higher. So, I'll go mid-table with a deep Europa League run, and I think there'd be some happy Forest fans at that.
Just before we go, because I know Mark's got to get back to work, and I'm sure these other guys have got lots of stuff to do. Sam Fuller quickly asking, any chance of a rundown of Seb's shirt collection? What have we got behind you today, Seb?
All right, Sam, what have we got here? So we have, we got Ecuador.
Nice.
Peru.
Nice.
Colombia.
Yeah.
Georgia. South Africa.
Oh, nice. No Brazil and no Greece or Australia.
Brazil. I don't. I got the little program here from the City Ground. If I can see that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, from the Senegal game. Yeah.
The Senegal game. Don't worry about the result. That's the thing. Jif played in that game for Senegal, and then I saw him back on that pitch, and the way that second half went, I think he remembered how well he played on that pitch. Yeah. That's all I would say. Look at that. And then the program fell down. What does that mean?
God, it's all falling down.
And out before Christmas.
That's a bad omen. Collapsing on the floor as the podcast ends. Right. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm speaking tonight to Baker, our Spurs fan, and some Celtic fans, because I really don't know that much about how he really did at Celtic. So we'll play that out tomorrow. We might even have one more or two podcasts tomorrow, possibly. We shall see. So do join us for that if you can. Do us a favour as well. Great to have so many people with us. I think there's a lot of Spurs fans here today. But do us a favour and hit like and subscribe. That would be great. Or do consider membership and Patreon and all those usual appeals. Mark, thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you. It's tumultuous times. Let's hope it calms down soon. I'm looking forward to the football now.
Is it going to calm down, really? I don't know. we shall see. We shall see. Victoria, thank you very much for the $10. Really appreciate that. Keeping you sane-ish since last night. Probably a few people feel that way. Seb, thank you very much.
No worries. A Brennan Johnson bid in January? What do you reckon?
I'd love it. Bring him home, as they say.
Feels right, doesn't it? With Postecoglou in charge.
When's your next Forest game?
Oh, think. Oh, I'm doing. Oh, this is a good way to announce it. Swansea League Cup.
Oh, there you go. Very nice.
Yeah.
Second
Will you be
game in
watching
charge.
the League Cup? Yeah. That's a good. That's
I
a great
watch all
start.
of them.
Yeah, you don't take the League Cup lightly, as Manchester United have found out.
No. Well, look at what it did for Newcastle. We spoke about winning trophies. If you win that, it's massive still. So yeah.
Forest have a good relationship with that trophy as well.
They do. 4-time winners. James Belshaw, thank you very much.
No problem. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Enjoyed it. We'll have you back on soon. We'll have all these guys back on soon. Like I say, thanks for everyone's company this lunchtime. Really appreciate that. And if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.